Hi, everybody, and welcome back to NA Lit Chat. I'm Amy Evans. We are back talking with Natasha Boyd and Alyssa Rose Ivy, and we have Chris Fox here as well. We apologize for that little tech glitch. We can chalk it up to the night before Halloween. Somebody's messing with either just us or all of Google, so you guys keep those scary costumes coming, and we will try to share them. We are eager to hear about your experiences with seasonal and special event marketing. We were just starting to talk about what kind of seasonal and special event marketing or seasonal and special event opportunities there are that really affect new adult specifically. And the second part of that discussion is, does it matter when you want to launch books? I mean, the most obvious one for me would be the beginning of school, right? College, the beginning of the year, you've got college football, you might have fraternity and sorority rush. That's one that's specific to new adult. But I love Natasha's example about negotiating the holidays. So what other seasonal and special event opportunities do you guys think would really resonate with the new adult readers and might be a good place for new adult authors to look for, inspiration for release timing?
Well, I think as Natasha was saying about like how you have to kind of negotiate those special events. I mean, that's true at the holidays. It's also true for summer break. You're in a
Yeah.
relationship. Do you take that job back home? Or do you take the internship that doesn't pay that's near campus so you get to see your boyfriend? There's things like that that you normally, I feel like the further along you get, maybe you're, at that point you could think a little bit clearer about your decisions. But I feel like at that age you're trying to decide, is your career more important or is it the guy or, for the guy, the girl, or whoever the partner is. I think that's really important. And also another thing, Amy, you mentioned the beginning of school. I feel like what's great is, especially if you're writing a series and it's set in college, is that every year gives you this like fresh opportunity to change things up and change things for the characters. I feel like
Right.
I always plan on putting out a book that times up with the beginning of school, but it doesn't seem to happen. Uh, but the nice thing is then you could just say, like, oh, guys, go check this out again, because that's the wonderful thing. And I wonder if you all agree with me about the marketplace today, is that it's not that you release your book and it has its one shot. The wonderful thing is that your book has such a long shelf life compared to what it would be if it was just in print when we're discussing ebooks, so that you put out a Christmas novella this year, you have it for next year.
Mhm.
Or you put out,
Absolutely.
and that's pretty cool
Well,
when you think
that
about it.
that brings me to an interesting question. I was wondering, I mean, is it something that we that new adult authors should season time or leave? Do you think the shelf life actually has legs during the non-season time? If we're talking about like a Halloween or a Christmas, um, sort of some of the calendar holidays, as opposed to like the start of school and that kind of stuff. Do you think that the books have shelf life during the off season, so to speak?
Um, I think that it depends on your decision of where your book is. Like my guess, Natasha, that your novella ties into your popular series. So I would assume that if people are going to pick up any book in the series, they're going to read that. The one I'm putting out, The Hazard's Mistletoe, also completely ties into my Hazard series. The hope is that you'd continue reading them at off times. Um, and the question would be is if it's a completely standalone book or something that doesn't tie into your other works, maybe it would be more difficult to keep readers coming back during the
Mhm.
like a different time of
But
year.
But you guys are basically finding like people want as much of your Hazards characters as they can get, and they want as much as your Eversea characters as they can get. So if the Christmas novella means another 30,000, 60,000, 10,000, whatever it is, words with those characters, they'll read it anytime they find it.
I'd say
That
that's
would
true. I'd say that is true. I think Alyssa brings a good point that if it's a standalone, it may not have as much shelf life as something that's an extension of a series, for sure.
What do you think about that, Alyssa?
And then
Oh, sorry.
no, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to know. I love I love that you're talking about the shelf life of books, and you're not just talking about marketing during one season. So
Uh, Yeah, I mean, I guess I try to view things more big picture, and how they fit in. Like as I talked about the Halloween set we did, the novella I put on in that, Seduction's Kiss, is actually a prequel to a new series, which is a spin-off of another one of my series. And so my hope is that that novella, yes, it takes place on Halloween, but it's going to help me launch that new series in 2015 as much as it's helping me now to have it out in Halloween. And I do think that that it's, as much as I know sometimes you don't want to write a series, one of the benefits of series is that you can continually market it in different ways. And part of one of probably one of the most exciting parts, I think, about today's marketplace is you can just kind of keep coming up with creative ways to keep using your backlist in different ways.
Yeah. I agree with that. And then I think also we're not as beholden to sort of doing formulaic holiday spin-offs or even just not just holiday, but just little novellas, and however we try to sort of link our series together, whether we do novella spin-offs or whether we do whole standalone or new series spin-offs. I think it's kind of nice in our new adult world that we aren't sort of like stuck in the formula, and we can sort of explore new avenues. We don't have to have the Christmas novella where somebody gets an engagement ring for Christmas, and we don't the Valentine's or the Halloween where somebody saves us from somewhere, a scary situation. Or it is I think in our genre of new adult we're so free to explore when we take these little novellas and sorry, I totally know that I took this down a different track from shelf life, but it just inspired me to sort of start thinking down that road. That we're sort of expanding the way that those holiday novels and holiday novellas have previously been put to market, if that makes sense.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I agree.
It's definitely interesting that we have a lot of space to do different things with our genre, because many of us aren't with publishers, or if we are with publishers, they're wanting to do really interesting things too. Cassandra Giovanni from Twitter mentioned that it kind of depends on the marketing of your book, but since we all usually play to the long tail of our sales, you can do a blitz of advertising for your book during the season. So like if you're releasing a Halloween book, oh my God, it's Halloween, here's your Halloween book, you'll get all the scary spooks. But afterwards, you can play off the missing time. You can play off the missing time of the rest of the year, basically. So it's like, well, hey, you missed the spooky time during Halloween, but hey, it's still there. You can read it anytime, or you could also get it next year when it comes around. You could basically just do a whole nother ad blitz campaign. So like if you have an older book, it's kind of hard to be like, hey, here's the book I put out like 3 years ago. It's good. But if you say, hey, this one's a Halloween book. I know you want Halloween stuff. If you haven't read it yet, this is perfect for Halloween. It
You're
has
right.
that.
You do kind of have inbuilt marketing seasons.
Yeah, it's like automatic free marketing every season. Hey, you want some holiday stuff? Here you go.
Well, and
I think with... Sorry, go ahead.
what I was going to say is that I think even what Chris raises a really good point, because even if you don't have a holiday or a seasonal book out, you can look at some of, if there is a seasonal, like let's just say you wrote a regular novel, but it happens to have a Christmas scene in there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's exactly what I was going to say. I find one of my Clayton Falls novels has a very romantic Christmas scene, wrecked, and I feel like this time of year I always push it again. And in general, I go back to Clayton Falls and I start promoting that series more because it's like a sweeter, small town romance series, and it just puts me in the holiday mood when I read them. Versus if it's kind of summer, that's not always what I'm emphasizing as much. So I think that so much about marketing today comes down to creativity, and as part of that, you need to kind of look at what's in your book and what makes it special, and think about how that fits into different times, and how to keep creatively marketing that book.
Well, and I think I apologize because you just went a little bit robo voice on me, but I think I got the gist of what you were saying, and I think that another way that you can really use what Alyssa's talking about with books that are already out there is it's a great way to recapture some of your readers and remind them of a part that they might have forgotten. So if all of a sudden, you have like a teaser or two about Christmas that's going to your fan base, they might have read that book and not be enough to get them to start like sharing teasers again about a book they might have read a year or two ago because it's seasonal and it feels good and they want to participate in the season, with stories that they already have an attachment to. So it's a double win in that way, in my opinion, at least.
I agree.
Yeah, if you have like let's say you have the Christmas scene and then the love interest kisses the other one innocently under the mistletoe or whatever, that's a really like emotional, interesting scene, but it has no relevance outside of Christmas. So if it's July and someone's like, "Man, you remember that one scene when he kissed her?" It's like, I'm not really interested in that right now. Maybe in like 6 months. But if that moment rolls around, it's easy to be like, hey guys, remember that cool scene? We should talk about this to our friends because that book was so good last year. It's the same book this year.
Exactly. Basically, it gives it gives everybody a reason to sort of remember parts of your book that maybe they would have pulled out.
You robo disappeared there,
So
but I got the gist too.
Yeah.
Is everyone still there? I think you disappeared.
Yes.
Okay.
We are still here. What
I think Amy
we can
disappeared.
do is we can mention some of the good news that we've had. So Michael Simcoe is finally back from a business trip. We know how horrible those things can be sometimes. So good on you for being back finally in the comfort of your own home. We have S.U. Evans, who is going out with as a human for Halloween. So there's no surprises there. And we also have St. Bende in lieu of a tutu. She has a sparkle skirt for Captain Rogers, one captain to another. Brandy Hall, my good news is the finale book in my series comes out tomorrow, Tangled. Super excited. So if you're looking for a new book, that's a good place. And she has this like gorgeous image. It's just this pretty blonde girl and just butterflies everywhere. It is sweet. So it's in the feed. Go look for it. It's great.
her butterflies are so pretty. Every time I see her teasers, I like want to take one home with me. She's done a really great job with them. Do you guys do you think that there's a bonus to the multiple group and author things when it's specifically a holiday or a special event project when I guess in theory you have a shorter timeline to promote?
I'm deferring to Alyssa. This is my first foray into that.
Well, my first one for doing the holiday in any capacity was Midnight Kiss. And I think it was great because we were able to get people excited. It's also a good opportunity when maybe you're writing something shorter. Maybe it's just you're writing a shorter novella, and sometimes packaging them together, it's a better deal for everybody. And I just think it's such a unique opportunity to cross promote, and you can't really, because it's hard. It's hard to do. I mean, obviously you can do sets in any capacity, but it is kind of fun when it's like a specific time period to promote, and it does help with the marketing, and it also maybe helps you define how long you want to have that set available, and how, in terms of promotion. So I think it can be beneficial. And I think cross-promotion is so important, and it's not something to overlook.
Yes.
Are you guys going to release individually after the set is over, or are these things always going to be a part of a set? Sorry, Natasha, I think you might have been ready to ask the same question.
I really was.
In our case, we'll be releasing them ourselves in like essentially any time starting in 2015. And I know Jennifer Snyder and I are both launching new series off of our novellas. So in that sense, it really makes sense for us to release that with to kind of get people excited again about the new series. So I think it really works. And for us, it really was a great experience, and it's definitely something I do again.
We did a weird, not for as far as the timeline goes, we did a event box set for World Oceans Day. It was a fundraiser with a group of authors in the spring, and it definitely was a lesson learned about how long you need to market. And these were all books, unlike Natasha's, they were already all written. But just putting it together and having the marketing time, even like after we planned out all the dates, we realized like, oh, we could have just done this the whole month of June instead of launching it on World Oceans Day and that kind of thing. So I think you can't underestimate the value of timing on these things. I know you guys released yours October 1st, right, Alyssa?
Yes, because I mean, the thing is like almost all holidays now, once you hit the holiday, I feel like people move on. So on November 1st, we're already talking about Christmas, right?
Yes.
So if you want to get into that Halloween spirit, people start doing that, the first cool day of the year, and October, it just made sense to kind of promote it all month because of that. So.
And what about you, Natasha? What's your release schedule?
Well, we had the same thought in mind, and we looked at the first feasible release day after October 31st, Halloween. So that's why we picked November 4th, and I think it's true. It gives us a while. It gives us a sort of a build-up to market it, and then we also get sort of November, December. And we are going to take, we haven't made a final choice, but we are going to take it off in January and probably separate them out and then publish them ourselves separately at some point during the year, 2015. But I think it is definitely there's no early, like there is no early time, time that's too early to market. Goodness me. I just think that the earlier you can market, the better.
Well, I think it's different when you're talking about holidays versus seasons. Like if you have a beach read, and actually we all have beachy kind of books. If you have a beach read, I feel like people aren't necessarily over the beach in August. Like they're often wanting to hold on with every last, bit of fingers.
And they're very ready for it come March. So that's actually the beach read is the longest ever.
But I agree. I mean, me personally, I love the holidays, but I am like done by, I don't want to see another cookie or eat another candy cane or hear another carol by the 26th. So I think
I'm like that by December 1st, I think. It gets earlier and earlier every year.
So I think that for that kind of thing, you really do need to take into account the human schedule of it all, which is different sometimes than the calendar schedule.
Yes.
And when you have like the big box stores putting out their Christmas decorations as soon as they take down the school supplies.
I would say that as authors we are very we would be very wise to follow the retail calendar. Those big box stores spend a lot of money on researching when to put those things out. So I think as soon as you see Halloween stuff, you should start promoting your Halloween stuff.
Well, and actually that brings us to a really good point, which is, sort of the trend jacking aspect of seasonal and special event marketing for books. Because if the retailers and the radio stations and all the fast food restaurants are already investing a lot of money getting people invested and feeling like they want something to do with the holidays, like they've already made your case for you to sell that mistletoe book, before Thanksgiving. So what are some other examples of like other times in the year where the marketing calendar of the world is something that you might really want to pay attention to? Maybe just give people some ideas, that we haven't really come up with because we've been talking specifically like Halloween and Christmas.
Yeah, I mean, there are stuff that people do every year. I would say Valentine's Day, all the big ones, but sort of unexplored ones, that's kind of tricky because they're not sort of world holidays. But I'd say that it's been mentioned before, but sort of, you said you had a friend or an author friend who did sort of the World Series sort of tie-in. It was a baseball book. I think there's a lot, beyond what we see on television, there's a lot of seasons for things. I mean, everybody who's a mom of a boy is probably like into football season, or who's married or in a relationship with a football fan, male or female, is into football. And so I think, I mean, obviously sports romances are quite big right now, and especially in the new adult genre. And I would say that would be a great time. There's no point to me, really. I mean, I would still read one, but there's no point in bringing out a football sports romance in March, let's say. I would say that those sort of things get tied in very seasonally, and more effectively tied in seasonally.
Well, and even
agree,
even if you do bring it out in March,
you could read like a Super Bowl novel any time of the year, but it's obviously more relevant during Super Bowl season. And like, if you wanted to see a World Cup romance or something, it would be much more obvious to market it more heavily during World Cup season. So it's just little things like that are like, that would be your ideal time. It's worthwhile any time, but especially worthwhile during the moment.
But with that, I also think it's important, especially if you're writing something that maybe isn't specifically for a holiday, but something like we talked about beach reads or something, but to find a way that you could promote that at other times. So I have one of my Hazards novels, The Hazards of a One Night Stand, which has all the makings of a beach read, and it's very light and fun, but it also has this, roll in the hay fall aspect to it. And so it's also a really great book to push in the fall because it gets you excited for that time of year and fall festivals and all that happen. So you can almost use it in different times of year if you kind of, once again, it's all about thinking about things creatively and how to appeal. But at the same thing, again, I hate to bring up beach reads again, but the idea is sometimes February is a great time to push a beach read because what does everybody want to do? They want it to be
spring and summer as fast as possible.
Exactly.
Right? So in that sense, and then,
it's like counter programming resort wear.
Exactly, in the same sense. And personally, I haven't written too many like winter romances, although I feel like I have some that have wintery scenes, and I'd be curious to see, how those would do when people are hot and tired, especially in like the South or a hot climate, to read something to cool you off. I don't know if that would work the same way, but in theory, you could use it that way too. I think the reality is that people are always looking for books. Like if you look on the bestseller list, you will find a Christmas book sometimes in July that just creeps up the charts because it hits a nerve. And I think that a lot of times that's because it could be because an author has other books that are doing well, or it could be that something about that book in a different way struck a chord because maybe it's about a football player, but it was a Christmas story about a football player, right? So then you can spin it in the fall. So
I think it's interesting because you're not talking about necessarily changing the content of the books.
No.
You're really talking about pulling out the relevant detail and shining a light on it, the same way you might shine a light on a Christmas scene in a more traditionally storied novel. You're talking about finding all these little parts that like go through the year. I always wonder, like, it always feels like I should be releasing in a time of the year that matches up with the timeline in the book, but that's totally unrealistic, and I know that that's just me. Does anybody else, you guys ignore that?
Yeah,
do you feel that?
I would say the first Eversea book was released in June, and the timeline of the book was definitely fall. And the second Eversea book was released in fall, and the timeline of the book was definitely spring. So I don't think, I think you're right. I think if you can tie into those seasons, it's great, but you shouldn't sort of box yourself into that. And as Alyssa says, there's always elements of certain books that can tie into certain times of the year. You just have to find those and use those opportunities.
And I think the flip side of that is don't rush to release because you think that it's critical for a time of the year, because having all your ducks in a row is definitely more important. I mean, not if it's a Christmas novella, then that's a different story, but like what I was saying, like my book starts on the summer solstice, so the first one I released on the summer solstice. The other ones aren't going to happen that way.
Yeah, I mean, there's really not much worse you could do than to release a book that isn't ready in terms of upsetting your readers and hurting your reputation. So I think, even if it's the Christmas novella that you really want to release, if it's not ready, then maybe you should think about shelving it until the next year, because it's not going to help you if it's not a good book.
I totally
and it's not
agree with that.
polished.
Like if you have a bad book that's released on time, that's not better than a good book that's released sometime.
Yes.
Yeah.
I forget who it's mentioned, but it goes to what Alyssa's saying in the sense that you should definitely, as a smart marketer, look for the details in your story that can be applied to multiple situations. Like I said, I forget who said it in chat or in the Twitter feed, but they mentioned Harry Potter. Now, Harry Potter's relevant 24/7 because it's just great. But there are significant scenes both at Halloween and Christmas which are emphasized strictly in the book. And if you've noticed, every Christmas, what kind of marathon do we get all the time on TV? Harry Potter. People like it because it does have those relevant scenes because, they're all under the Christmas tree and they got their sweaters this year. It's fun. And we remember it for those holiday scenes or those seasonal significant scenes. And if you're smart, you can see them in your own stories and be able to put them out, or at least talk about them in such a way that makes it relevant to your reader who may not have read it, who is just now seeing what you're saying.
Right, because that's really like 1% of Harry Potter, but you're right, you remember them in every book.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, and that has the added bonus of sort of rolling through the same timeline on a year, and that's a different way to do a series. I think that it's not something that I'm seeing a ton of right now, but it does leave you a lot of room for celebrations that you can pull out. Does it matter? Does all of this matter? Does it make a difference in sales if you release a Christmas book in November versus not, just release it at a different time? Does it matter for sales if you tie it to special events?
I think there are people that look for Christmas books. My agent was super excited that I was doing a Christmas book. She was like, they always sell. That's so fantastic. I personally have never bought a Christmas book because it was Christmas. So, I think there are people that look for just Christmas books. I think in the case here where Alyssa and I mean, definitely different with the Halloween thing, but where Alyssa is also doing a novella extension into Christmas of a series, and I am too, then no, I don't think it does tie in with Christmas, but I don't think that is really, it hinges on the fact that it's Christmas.
Right.
And I think...
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, also something to think about is, you're not, again, I'm always a proponent that you have to think big picture. And so the idea is when you're deciding what book you'd want to release in November or December, sometimes it's important to think about the kinds of books somebody would be interested in reading. So maybe you could release the Christmas novella in July, but you should probably only do that if you think there's another book that would be better suited for November or December. Because, think about it. I'm sure there are horror books that do really well in December, but for me, I think I'd be a little nervous unless it tied into a series to be releasing something like that, like on the 24th of December. So I think whether you're writing that holiday book or not, it's important as an author, since it's a business and you're looking at it from the marketing perspective, to think about what kind of books you want to read and what kind of books your audience would want to read at that time of year.
And the tail and preparing for it, as you say, you don't want to release one on the 24th of December if that's how long it takes you to get ready. It is, again, to Amy's point as well, and to yours, Alyssa, just and maybe do it next year. Because there definitely is. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, well, I was
Chris,
basically going to come off that phrase, like in the sense that we're not like big market Hollywood films, which can release on December Day because they know millions of people are going to watch it. As indie developers and like writers, we have to play that long tail. That's the best way to get sales. And if you can kind of market in a season, good. If you can't, that's okay because people can buy it later. It's not going anywhere. Amazon's not going to crumble just because you didn't release on time.
I think what I've learned most from this conversation though is that if you can tie either a new book, a new release to something that other people are paying to get people in the mood for, or if you can pull elements out of an existing book, you've got a barrier to entry already covered. So like you just said, sure, you could release a Christmas novel in July, but not only do you have to convince people to read your book, you have to convince them to decide to think about Christmas in July. And that's like two barriers to entry, to getting that reader to spend time with you. So, if it makes it more enjoyable for you also, because you're like, okay, well, I've got my novel out, I'm like participating in the season, I have fun things to market while still like working with what people want to see, then I think that just makes it more enjoyable. It makes your job easier.
Yes, I agree.
Like it's fun to talk about your spooky book in Halloween when everybody, wants to see spooky teasers and stuff like that. That I believe would still work in the spring, and certainly there's Mardi Gras and it's New Orleans and there's a lot of other reasons that you could sell that story, but people aren't looking for like the same memes as they are right now.
Correct.
So before we go, and I feel like we haven't really heard a bunch from Twitter tonight because of our technical issues. So Chris and Lindsay, if there's anything that we've really missed that you want to make sure we mention, please let me know now. But I want to know what your number one, the thing that you've done or that you're going to do that you're most excited about when it comes to seasonal releasing and marketing is, and what you'd like to see some other people do as well. Alyssa, do you want to go first?
Yeah.
Oh, sure. I mean, I think the bottom line is that you need to have fun with it. I think if you don't enjoy the holidays, then you probably shouldn't write a holiday novella unless you're spinning it from a different perspective. And I think that if you enjoy what you're writing and you have fun with it, and whether you have to write that story in the middle of summer or not, you just need to get into it and have fun with it, so that when you release the book, you are having fun with it, and you can have fun with your readers at the same time.
And what about you, Natasha?
Yeah, same thing. I mean, I totally agree with those. I think that there's a lot of opportunity for us to explore different holidays. I mean, just thinking right now, we've got Election Day coming up. I don't see a lot. I know Megan Vernon did an election book. I don't see a lot of people do that because it is such a hot button. But it would be fun to sort of be able to tie in, it doesn't have to be a vitriolic anything, but it would be fun to tie into sort of lesser known. Somebody on the Twitter chat mentioned Thanksgiving. Just to tie it to sort of look for opportunities in lesser used holidays to sort of give you more to work with, I guess, from your existing stories, because I think all of us at some point or another have events that, so I mean, I have Thanksgiving as mentioned in my book. In my first book, I don't really harp on it, but it is there, and it could have been an opportunity that I'd explored more. I think as authors, we do need to sort of look at of how we can bring things into our books as we write, with a view to marketing in mind. Is all I'm going to say about that. And yes, have fun with it, as Alyssa says. Have fun with it. Get into Christmas and.
But you're talking about doing that organically.
July.
I love Christmas in July too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it would be good if we all wrote that in mind of how to extrapolate it later.
Well, I don't know.
Not always possible.
Everything, but hopefully this is giving you an idea of like, hey, in in November I can do a couple new teasers and remind people that when they're thinking about Thanksgiving, they can be reminded of this book that they love so much.
Yes.
All right. Well, that is our cue. Thank you so much, Alyssa Rose Ivy and Natasha Boyd. You guys have been very wonderful to talk to and super informative and very patient with whoever we've got in our channel tonight that seems to be messing with us, especially poor Lindsay.
That's what happens on Mischief Night. It's just one of those nights.
Yeah.
It's definitely Halloween. The ghost of Halloween.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for having me, and happy Halloween, everyone.
Thank you. And thank you to
thank you for having me too. Happy Halloween.
you guys have been great. Thank you to Chris Fox and Lindsay Lewis and St. Bende, who is out in Twitterland. Alicia Cat Vansel and EJ are both traveling tonight, but we miss them, and maybe they'll send us some pictures from wherever they are. I am Amy Evans. I'm wishing you thank you for listening and good night. And I just want to tell you something a little bit special for next week. As everybody gets ready for NaNoWriMo, we're going to be dedicating the entire month to tips and tricks for helping you get through. And I'm pretty sure you guys are going to be as excited about this first guest as our whole production team is. We have Rachel Aaron coming to be with us next week, and she is the author of 2K to 10K and a couple other great nonfiction writing books, as well as her own fiction. And she's going to come in and talk all about how we can make the most of our writing time and really get those word counts in. Even if it's not something you usually pay attention to, November seems to bring that out in all of us. So we hope you'll join us next week, 9 p.m. Eastern. We'll see you guys then. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.